Welcome to another episode of The Financially Free Investor, where you will learn information and strategies on how to become financially independent by investing in real estate, something that is not taught openly in our society today. Financial freedom matters so you can live a bigger life, retire early, and do what matters most to you. Get ready to hear tried and true methods to becoming financially free with your host, Jordy Clark.
Hey everyone, welcome into another episode of The Financially Free Investor. Today's episode, I'm super excited for. I got my good buddy, Rob Leninger. We've met through GoBundance and, we were on some weekly accountability calls and I know him pretty well. And we've kind of, grown close over the last few years. So Rob, welcome in, buddy.
Thanks. Glad to be here. I appreciate the invite. I've been listening to your podcast, learned a lot. So I'm glad to add what I can to the mix.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, let's dive in. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your guys' journey in less than 10 minutes, if you can.
I can. Okay. So I'm currently 46 years old. At this stage of my life, my investing partner, who happens to be my wife, and I are financially free because of real estate. That's the short version. The long version is, and this is something we've been talking about a lot recently, to go way back to the beginning. When we first got married, and we've been married for 21 years this year, when we first got married, we saw very little value in money and having money and the acquisition of money and the everything that goes along with that. We wanted to be American Mountain Guide Association certified mountain climbing guides. And that was our goal. We were going to do that. We issued money. We thought the dirtbag lifestyle was cool. We thought it would provide us with everything we needed. And so that was our sort of path we had laid out. I remember we went to Yellowstone Park with my wife's parents and my parents, and we told them of this plan. It was their first ever meet and greet, and they were a little shocked, and they were definitely trying to talk us out of it. And they had the expertise and the wisdom gained from being a generation ahead of us and having been through a lot of things that we had yet to face. So ultimately we did pursue that for a little bit. We first got married, we moved to Japan, we lived there for a year, taught English, traveled, just had an amazing time. Really free, no kids, anything like that. Right after we got back, though, my wife got pregnant, and those days of the freewheeling lifestyle all of a sudden came to a screeching halt for me. I just realized that as cool as that lifestyle was, and by the way, we had not intended to have children. We weren't necessarily trying to avoid it, but it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't something we were planning for. And once we became pregnant, my wife became pregnant, I just realized that kind of lifestyle that we were living was not suitable to raising a family. Not that people can't do it, but it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what we wanted. So I went back to school and I went into medicine. I thought, well, looking at things from kind of a planning perspective, what's a good job that I will always be able to find work in that pays well, that's going to be able to, afford us, at least some degree of luxury and necessity, and medicine seemed like a good fit. I had been doing woodworking, furniture making, timber framing, cabinet making, a bunch of stuff for a long time. Always been good with my hands, pretty mechanical. And so I went into orthopedic surgery. I did that for 10 years. Long story short about that, when I graduated PA school, I was making a little over $100,000 a year, and I had $140,000 in student loan debt. It was equivalent to my house payment at the time. And I had a job in Arizona, and after my first year where they paid for all my student loans, they paid $10,000 of my student loans. I didn't make a single payment. I let them pay everything out of that $10,000. So I had $143,000 when I started. At the end of that year, after the $10,000 they paid, I had $144,000 because the interest was growing more rapidly. And I just thought, holy cow, what did we get ourselves into? It was pretty shocking. And so we started looking at other ways to earn some money. Real estate was always on our radar, but we didn't know anything about it. And at that point in time, we really didn't have the funds to get into real estate. We had done a little bit of improvement on our very first house. Sold it for maybe $10,000 profit. Most of that was just sweat equity. Our second house, we did even better on. We maybe made 20 or 22,000, something like that, without having to really do anything. And we kind of realized, wow, this was a brand new house when we bought it. It didn't depreciate like all these other things we've bought and owned. It appreciated in about a year and a half time, maybe closer to 2 years, I guess. About 25,000, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but again, we hadn't done anything to it, and we thought, well, there's something here. There's definitely something here. About that same time that we sold that house, my wife she'd been in a number of network marketing companies, and there was always sort of a glass ceiling. She would become one of the top earners in the company, and that was right around 100,000 with all these different companies. We got involved in a new network marketing company, right place, right time, right company, and there was no ceiling. And you hear about people who get involved with network marketing, and they are able to basically make money, through the mailbox. Not to say we didn't work, we didn't earn it, we didn't put a lot of time in, but we're one of those couples that you hear about that they don't have to work anymore necessarily because of what they did in network marketing. So, and I don't say that to brag. It's just that's our path, that's our course, and that's kind of the reality of it. A lot of the people who were our colleagues in the business were making similar money. They were buying mansions, they were buying boats, fancy cars, a fleet of modern day luxury cars, and spending all kinds of money. It just wasn't our thing. We've always lived below our means. We continue to today. And we started thinking, well, what can we do that's going to build a legacy for us? It's going to build a future, build retirement, leave something for our kids. And real estate was the obvious answer. We had seen other investment vehicles, stocks, bonds, all that stuff. We had seen those go bad for our families, my parents and my wife's parents, and then other people we knew. And we just weren't really comfortable with that whole game, so to speak. So we really decided to go all in on real estate. Basically not knowing anything, but getting kind of an education from the Bigger Pockets podcast, and started to read some books and started to figure things out. We dabbled in single family residences, and then bought a duplex, and then we got into doing short-term rentals. And some of this was luck. We live in Montana. Montana, over the last couple of years with the COVID stuff, has become a destination for people with money. And again, right place, right time, right market. We have done very, very well with appreciation. So we've taken the appreciation we saw in small town Billings, Montana, and completely changed that where we live now in Gallatin County, Bozeman area.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's interesting. Going back to your story, I don't know if we've talked about this, but when I was pre-med, I actually wanted to go into orthopedic surgery.
And I didn't know that.
So it's funny. I'm surprised we haven't talked about that. But I was thinking about this driving down the road the other day, and even had I gone down that route, I talked to so many very well-paid professionals, and all of them want to invest in real estate, right? Like,
yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I was like, man, had I gone down that path, I probably would have ended up wanting to invest in real estate anyways. So like, I just kind of cut out the whole student loan debt, and well, for the most part, we still had some, but yeah, no, it's interesting. Just thinking about that. Your story.
It's true though, because a lot of people who I worked with or used to work with in medicine, and some of my friends who are still in medicine who I do stuff with and friends with now, they're all either getting into real estate, or they're asking me how they can get into it, or they are already into it. It's a thing people want in.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason it is probably so desirable is, like, even as doctors, like you have this high income, but you're also kind of expected to live a certain way, right? Like if you
Mm.
don't drive a certain car or don't live in a certain neighborhood, like, you must not be successful. And I think it's cool that in your guys' story, you were able to live below your means. I'm sure you still live a very good life and on your own terms, but you don't
Hmm.
necessarily have to spend a ton of money to achieve that.
Exactly. I mean, I think it depends on what your priorities are, right? The appearance of wealth, I guess you could call it, has never been something that we cared about. We don't care about keeping up with the Joneses. The things of importance to us have been a nice home, not a mansion. I mean, we live in about a 3,000 square foot house now. My wife, my two kids, and I, on 20 acres outside of a little town called Manhattan, Montana. Um, it's not luxurious. It's a new home. It's well built. There's, it was affordable. And I guess the affordability piece actually, saying that, that's one of the key tenets for us all this time. Um, Getting into real estate, and I think this has been my message to my family, to my friends, anybody who's asking me for advice. I can only give advice on what I have experience in, or I only feel comfortable giving advice on what I have experience in. If someone wants to know more about things that I haven't done, I'm going to send them to you, or I'm going to send them to someone who has done those things, because I don't feel like it's my space. But we've always looked for places that were affordable. For us, we were able to put enough money down so that we didn't have a big mortgage. We always had this contingency plan in the back of our heads. If something were to happen and we were to say lose our income, we had to move out of this house and rent it, or we were underwater. We couldn't sell it for what it was worth. Could the house support itself if we had to move a long-term renter in? And so that has been one of the key things we've done with all the framework of all our purchases, is make sure that if we needed to, we could get someone in here who could cover the cost of the house until the market came back up, or until whatever situation passed. And it wasn't going to be something exorbitant for them, that anybody could afford to rent. And maybe it's because we're a little frugal. I don't know. But it just made sense to us, and it has played out so well. We've seen so many people who have overextended themselves, or put as little money down as possible, and then they have this huge mortgage payment, and something happens and they're not able to make that payment anymore, and you have a whole lot less options at that point.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, who taught you guys that, or did you guys just kind of come to that, as your marriage unit and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do?
Yeah, we weren't taught that. I mean, I can't say that we weren't influenced, because like I said, we listened to a ton of podcasts, we read books, but I don't ever remember that being a lesson specifically that stood out learning. It was just something that my wife and I agreed upon was a good, safe way to go. We're very different people. She's much more of a, early adopter than I am. She's more emotional than I am when it comes to purchases and stuff, which is good because it balances me out. I'm much more research based. I want to know all the numbers. I want to know how this is all going to work, what it's going to look like right now and down the road. And so we have, brought out the other side of each of us. But I think together, working as a team, there's synergism there. And our values have always, even though our maybe our attitudes toward investing have been different, we've always been a little risk averse, me more than her. But I think our values overall have been pretty spot on with one another's. So yeah, I don't remember ever learning that specific lesson. It was just something that we both felt comfortable with, and we were able to agree on that was probably the right thing to do. And for us, it has been.
So for someone that's just starting on their journey to financial freedom, or they're just learning about, hey, maybe you don't have to work, 80 hours a week as an orthopedic surgeon for the next 40 years to be able to have some sort of retirement. What advice would you give that person?
Well, several pieces of advice. Number one, I think something that really helped us was having a good accountant. And I say that specifically because of one decision that he made for us, or I mean, we made the decision, but he advised us, was starting our own property management company, LLC. and running all of our expenses through that, purchasing homes through that. That was good. And you don't know what you don't know, right? So you need to surround yourself with people who know more than you. And so having a good team is one of those things. We have a great realtor who's very good at finding deals, and she knows what we're looking for. And so communication between yourself and a realtor, and good communication, not just communication, but letting them know exactly what it is you're looking for. They can help separate the wheat from the chaff, and so it really streamlines the whole process. And then contractors, over the last 6-7 years, we've developed sort of a network of contractors that we like to use, and they will help us out when we need. Work is really hard to find in the valley. There's so much growth here, and most people are just slammed. But if you have developed these relationships, foster them, nurtured them, they will tend to make openings for you. So those are a couple things. Another thing for me is I grew up blue collar. I had a hard work ethic. I was always trying to outwork everybody. I'm not saying you have to do this, but I do think it's good to be willing to. I mean, it's a house, right? It's not a car that you wax and polish on the weekends. It's a house, and it takes love, and it takes care, and it takes elbow grease and sweat and blood and tears and all this stuff. So for me, I've always been one of these people who's very good at maintaining things, whether it's my bike or my car or my house, whatever. Being willing to do some of the work yourself, sweat equity goes a very long way. And I spent all day yesterday and most of today until the time of this podcast working on our place that we just sold. And I think that's one of the real reasons why on all of our properties, not just this one, we've done so well, because we have just really worked to maintain these properties, make them look valuable to people. A lot of real estate is first impressions, right? It's what people see from the curb. There's location, right? There's all these other factors. But if someone shows up to maybe a location they're not that excited about, but they see the work you put into it and the maintenance you've done and how you've improved the property, I think that really speaks loudly. And so it's just, it's kind of a source of pride. And there are times where I wish I wasn't so prideful and I didn't have to do so much work because of it. But, right here and now, we just closed on a property that we sold last Friday. We're closing on another one next month that we're selling. And the value that we generated from being able to just roll up our sleeves and get to work has been very significant.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to be said for that, because, so many people, they want the appreciation or they want the gains or whatever without having to do the work, right? And that could be in any area of our life, right? Like people want a magic pill to lose weight instead of just correcting their what they're consuming, right?
Yeah.
Or they want to be rich without having to figure out how to live within their means and invest the difference, or whatever that may be. And so I think that's phenomenal advice, and certainly something I probably needed to hear just as we're growing and adding kids in and just have everything going on. A lot of the times it's easy just to go, oh well, I could just hire somebody for that, but there definitely is some value in doing some work yourself.
Yeah, well, there's also value in having a team in place, like I know you do, and being able to hire things out. To say it again, you don't know what you don't know, and if you're trying to tackle a plumbing problem that's over your head, you might create a real mess, right? So there are certainly times where I'm willing to farm something out to somebody, but I think just overall, like I said, this is a big investment. Any piece of real estate you buy is a big piece of investment. If you can put your hands on it and you can, get to know the property, the house, the structure, the systems, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, all this stuff, and just do a little bit of maintenance, I think it really goes a long way. That's my personal thing. There's a lot of people who don't do that, who don't want anything to do with it. I'm not saying it's the only way. A lot of people just want to hire someone to do all this stuff. I've always had this thought pattern that if you want something done right, do it yourself. Nobody cares as much about my house as I do. And especially that's true in a place or, a time where everyone's busy and they don't really have the time to devote to things. So, again, you got to do what's right for you. You got to work within your own skill set. Um, these are things that have worked for me and for us. I don't recommend them to everybody. And if someone else has, a great contractor and they don't want to do anything, then so be it. But part of that too, I think, which has been really important, which I like to talk about, is we've involved our kids. Okay, so my kids know how to change doorknobs. They know how to mow the lawn. They know how to winterize the sprinkler system. They know how to climb up in the attic and add insulation and turn off the breakers to do work on the electrical system. And we're looking right now at helping our kids, both of our boys, or the two of them together, I should say, to purchase a house, just an inexpensive house that will, basically hopefully appreciate like we've seen, in our past purchases. They're going to be the ones who are maintaining it. They're going to be working on it. They're going to be taking care of it. They're going to be building this sweat equity. And I think that's a really important lesson. Our kids have been involved they're 18 and 15 now, for the last 7 years with this property we just sold, doing all kinds of maintenance and work and chores there. And we're gonna cut them in as a result of that. They've earned it. They've put in a lot of sweat equity on that property, and we want them to learn this lesson right now, that these things, they have merit, they have value down the road.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, dude, let's talk about your kids for a second.
Okay.
I just knowing you, I know it's very important to you, family and everything. And you guys homeschool. You chose to homeschool for a number of years, right?
Yep.
Why did you do
Yep.
that? And do you think that because you did that, you were able to teach them some of these other life lessons, like I wasn't homeschooled, right? I just happened to grow up a contractor's son, and so I knew a lot of this other stuff. But a lot of my peers, they don't know how to change a doorknob. They don't know how to do all this stuff, and it's life skills.
Yeah, well, I wasn't homeschooled either. I went to public school and, turned out just fine, so to speak. My wife actually has a master's in education, and she got out of her master's degree, started teaching, and decided, I don't want our kids going to public school. So, this is just one of those things. There have been several decisions like this for us over the years where our parents said, "You guys are crazy. What are you thinking?" But it felt right to us, and we pursued it. And yeah, so we've now been homeschooling since my older son, who's 18, he's a senior this year, since he was in second grade. My younger son was in kindergarten, he's 15. So, a long time now. It's like 10 years, maybe 11 or 12. So it's been a long journey. We had to learn a lot. But yeah, one of the main things we learned early on, and that just has continued to be a blessing over the years, is we get to control what our kids are learning, what the curriculum is. We follow sort of national curriculum standards, so to speak. My kids are still learning math or learning how to write, but a big part of what we teach them is personal finance and responsibility, planning, critical thinking, a lot of these things that kids aren't necessarily getting. They're learning how to conform and how to turn into a good office worker in a cubicle somewhere. And we've never seen really the value with that. I mean, I have a master's degree as well. I don't use it anymore. My wife has the master's, she doesn't use. We made our money virtually, and then with network marketing, and now with real estate. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with going the traditional route, but we've had so many different experiences since we left kind of what is considered to be mainstream, and there have been so many benefits that we are trying to streamline that for our kids a little bit, help them discover what's possible, and that they can think for themselves and they can do for themselves what they want. They don't have to follow the crowd. So that's my little soapbox diatribe about homeschooling. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, it provides us with a lot of opportunities to tailor education to their strengths and their weaknesses. My kids are very different from one another. They're both really intelligent, but in different ways. And so we're able to help them build confidence in their skill sets, and become very proficient at the kind of things that they're interested in, and then just teach them to be good people and how to navigate this crazy world we live in.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting hearing all of this, and again, just knowing you on a personal level. Like, a lot of what we've been talking about is non-traditional.
Yeah.
Right? Financial freedom is not the norm. Most people are broke until the day they retire, and then they're even more broke. Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of how our society is wired, that you're taught, go to school to get a good job so you can work 40 hours a week for 40 years, so that then maybe you can retire and die peacefully or what have you. But like, dude, that's not living. And in fact, to your point on just the programming of our society, I guess, if you will, I was talking to a buddy of mine who I went to high school with. He now teaches in high school, and he was expressing some frustrations with me. We went to lunch yesterday, and I said, I'm just curious, as an educator, what do you feel the benefit of high school is to all of these kids? And he's like, honestly, it's teaching someone how to sit in the same place for 8 hours, how to listen, and we're teaching them, hey, this is what you need to know, right? Versus all these other life skills that, like, dude, no one ever taught me how to invest in real estate in high school. No one taught me how to invest in the stock market, or that you can go out and sell a product with a network marketing company and bring other people on and build a team and become so financially fit that, like, you don't necessarily have to go and work from 8 to 5 every day. You can be more flexible, and you guys still work very hard. It's ingrained in you guys, and it's just something I admire about you and Elise, that, like, you guys still work hard, but you also are able to take time and do what matters most to you, right? Like, you mountain bike a ton, you hunt a ton, you're able to do these other things that fulfill you. And then when you come back and work, you're 100% on fire, and you probably get more done in 2 or 3 hours than most people do in an 8-hour workday of sitting at a desk, like, just being a zombie, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you have to decide what's important to you. I don't think enough people do. I think they look for a job that maybe has a little bit of esteem, or that has enough of an income, and they just commit themselves to that. And there are some people who definitely have a job that they like and they really enjoy what they do. There's a lot of people though who are just suffering on a day-to-day basis. We had to sit down and think about what was important to us from work perspective, financial perspective. I mean, were we multi-mega millionaires or billionaires? Would that be nice? Sure. But it doesn't change anything. I mean, even if we look at our happiness from back when I had all that student debt and we had been living on public assistance to now, we're not any happier now with the money that we have. But we have a lot more options, right? That's what I think money gives you, is the ability to free up some time, to have options. And we've just always felt like you pointed out earlier, a lot of people do the same job for 40 years and then they retire, and if their health's good enough, maybe they get to enjoy some of that retirement if they have enough money saved. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to live right now, while I'm a healthy, young, fit male, live this lifestyle that I was interested in, and find a way to make it work, so that I wasn't just working 5 days a week, and then having a day and a half off on the weekend before I had to start preparing for work again. That just didn't jive with what we wanted out of our lives and what our values were. So yeah, we had to, make some uncomfortable decisions and have some uncomfortable conversations with employers and family. And, but you know what? It all turned out, I wouldn't say exactly as we planned, because I don't know that we could have planned for this, but it turned out even better than we planned, really. And now, our family is proud of us. They love our lifestyle. We have this freedom and flexibility to travel. Homeschooling provides another avenue of flexibility, because we're not tied down to the school year per se. We can just take our work on the road with us. We lived in an Airstream travel trailer for a year in 2015 with our kids, homeschooling the whole time. So it's about options, right? It's about, what do you value in your life? What things are important to you? How can you find a way to make enough money to, survive, pay the bills, put food on the table, maybe save a little extra, maybe have some investments, but yet not compromise your day-to-day life. Because if you're not happy, it doesn't really matter how much money you make, in my opinion.
Yeah, man, I'm so glad. I feel like you kind of just put a bow on the conversation, and I just want to ask you two more questions. But I think our society is very like go, 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 and social media makes it terrible because it's like our attention span's like 7 seconds.
Mm.
But what advice would you give to someone who maybe needs to slow down and figure out, what's important to them? And yeah, what advice would you give to someone?
Well, number one, get off social media. I mean, we did. And boy, you have so much more time to do productive things, right? Like planning for your future, like figuring out what's really important to you instead of just wasting the day doing this with your thumbs. But I think, in all seriousness, the planning aspect is huge. Most people don't sit down and plan. They plan more for what they're going to have for dinner on a given night than they do what they're going to do over the next year or next several years. You and I going through the GoBundance and the weekly calls for what is it, almost 2 years we did them. We held each other accountable, right? So I think finding someone who inspires you, who motivates you, who can hold you accountable, call you out on bullshit, I think that's really important. You sitting down and having an honest conversation with yourself or your spouse or partner on what's important to you, and then making a plan, right? You reverse engineer it. Okay, if we want this, how do we do that? Let's reverse engineer this and find out all the steps we need to take along the way so that we can have that. Again, I don't think many people do that. Maybe some people, do put a little bit of effort into it and they realize it's not hard or it's not working right away and they give up. We still do that. I mean, even at this point in our lives, we haven't stopped trying to optimize things and trying to look for ways to make our life the best possible. So those would be kind of my two, I guess, off the cuff key pieces of advice. If you don't have a plan, a map in front of you, how are you going to get to where you're going or where you want to go?
So good. So good. I hope everyone rewinds and listens to that advice, because I think it's desperately needed in our society. And so many people just, they don't sit down and do that. They just, want to invest in real estate because they saw someone do it, right? Like they're like, oh, that seems like a good idea, but maybe it's not important to them. So, well, dude, I want to be sensitive to your time. So last question is, knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently on your journey?
Started earlier. I don't know, honestly. Like I would have probably invested in real estate earlier. We kind of felt like we had to learn more and more before we were ready to invest. And I don't want to tell people to just jump in blindly because you can lose your shirt. But I think, if you are thinking maybe sometime down the road you want to start learning about it, maybe investing in it, don't start today. Take these steps forward. Honestly, knowing what I know now, I probably wouldn't have gone to medical school and become a surgeon and accrued all that debt. I would have had another, 7 years of school, and 7 years of being a surgeon, where I could have done something different. I could have started my real estate journey sooner, right? I could have built my net worth sooner. I don't regret those experiences. They were wonderful. I met great people. I had a good time. But, again, you asked the question, knowing what I know now, what would I do differently? I would have gotten involved in all this stuff sooner.
Man, so good. So good. Love it. Well, Rob, thank you for your time. Hopefully the people will listen to this episode twice, because I think there's just a ton of gold and wisdom in it. And it's a lot of it's just different than what you'll hear, talking to coworkers or your neighbors or what have you. So hopefully everyone can go and benefit, and they'll undoubtedly see just all the gold that is within you. And so thank you. I just wanted to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. This was fun, and glad to reach out to your audience and maybe show them a different way.
Okay. Yeah. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up.
All right. Thank you, Jordy.
Okay. Thanks, Rob. Thank you for joining me for another episode of The Financially Free Investor. If you found value in this episode or know someone who would find value in this information, please share with them, subscribe, and send us a review.